But next up, today sees the release of Cutouts, the third album by The Smile, Tom York, Johnny Greenwood and Tom Skinner, who since forming in 2020 have been working at a relentless pace. 3 albums in 2 years. Their last record, Wall of Eyes, only came out in January this year. But this isn't the sign of a band hurling things out without due care and attention. Every record of theirs is an evolution, and their output feels like an intentional break from the usual established industry pattern of product scheduling, and more an illustration of a group of musicians just freeing themselves up and creating when and where and how the moment takes them. This new record is another brilliant piece of work, feeling maybe more freeform and less dense than its predecessor. It's a fluid, hard to pin down and hard to put down piece of work. The band, however, have remained pretty much silent. There's been no interviews. They've been very much happy to let the music speak for itself, I guess is the cliche, but the reality is just play music rather than talk about music. However, drummer Tom Skinner very kindly agreed to speak to us here at New Album Fix on Six Music. So here is that interview.
Six Music's New Album Fix.
It seems that the work rate of the band is it seems quite relentless. It's like you're doing more records than most people do in an entire career. Tell me a bit about, is it constant momentum, or do you think about it in terms of albums? How does it work for you guys?
It's, I don't think we've sort of thought about it in terms of albums quite in that kind of way. I mean, it's just been quite a kind of natural, kind of steady workflow, I think, from the beginning, really. And then in terms of these 2 records, I mean, they were sort of largely recorded at the same time, at least kind of started recording them at the same time. And then in terms of finishing this third LP, we kind of reconvened after the initial sessions and, kind of to finish everything. So, but yeah, it's been really productive. It's been really fun and very kind of exploratory and just sort of following, I don't know, I think we've just, from the beginning, we've always just sort of followed our instincts and our intuition, I think, and just tried to follow where the music is telling us to go, so yeah, it's been a really enjoyable, fruitful time of creativity for all of us, I think. So yeah,
that's very much what listening to each record, and kind of obviously everyone talks about the evolution of a band, but it does feel like the more you're recording, the more you're playing, you can because they're so close together, these records, you can really feel you sort of pursuing different avenues, and it's sort of expanding out for every record. It's kind of fascinating to see. It's one of the cool things about it being that kind of quick, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think also, like, as we've been performing live, we've been, writing as we go and developing new songs on the road, practicing them in the sound checks. And then, if we feel like, we're ready to perform it, then we'll stick it in the set and we'll surprise everyone and play a new song. And so, yeah, it's been fun in that way as well. And so yeah, just kind of thinking on our feet. I think that's been the sort of general thing with the recording and performing as well, is just kind of like, just keep it kind of buoyant and keep it moving as we go.
I guess that's especially obviously with, I mean, you've got a certain musical pedigree, so have Tom and Johnny, but like, I guess it would be quite easy for everything to become quite precious and quite like, it's a new project, it's a new record from these hugely talented musicians, but by keeping it, as you say, so kind of nimble, you kind of push all that expectation to one side, and it just gets more instinctive. I guess that's something you like about the project, or you wouldn't be doing it, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's true.
Okay, so where paint a picture of the kind of the geography of the session. So, I like this question. If I came to visit you, where would the studio be? Is it cups of tea and biscuits and lots of chatting and then 5 minutes work an hour, or is it like just work? Tell me a bit about what I'd find.
It's pretty kind of full on work. Like when if we're there to work, then we kind of just get on with it, really. There's quite a lot of coffee. But yeah, I mean, both these last 2 records have been largely recorded at Johnny's studio which is in his garden essentially. He has a lovely house just outside of Oxford in some woods, and the studio is sort of separate from the house. And it's a very calm environment. It's a great space. We have everything set up for us that we need. If we need to just whichever direction we might want to go in, we're kind of like ready to go. So we'll have all the guitars and basses, drums, keyboards, synthesizers, and everything kind of ready to roll. So that was, it's largely been recorded there, but then also some sessions at Abbey Road. So sort of bits of both albums were recorded at Abbey Road as well, which was really fun to do that. I'd never really made a record at Abbey Road, strangely. I mean, and also I don't really think people do that much these days. Go there to make a record. I guess some people do, but I think they were really happy to have us there. It's kind of like, oh, you want to come and record here for 2 weeks? Okay, great, yeah. So that was really fun as well. So, and then also in terms of like finishing things, we've also often sort of done bits of sort of scratch recording whilst we've been on the road. So Sam Petts Davies, who produced the record, he's come on the road with us, and if we've had bits to finish, like bits of vocals or finishing touches to things, we've kind of done that in dressing rooms or hotel rooms, and listening to mixes and sort of making decisions as we kind of go, much in the way that I was explaining before. So yeah, it's sort of been an interesting journey of different environments, but mainly it was sort of focused at Johnny's studio in Oxford. So yeah.
So in terms of how has working with Johnny and Tom changed the way that you approach your playing? Because I mean, you've obviously worked with various different people before, and everyone you play with, even if you've got a very distinct style, it changes you, doesn't it? Because you're responding to what everyone's doing in the room. Tell me about how's this changed you? How are you a changed man because of these records, especially this current one?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know. I mean, their music with Radiohead has been like a large influence for me over the years. So I feel like I kind of, even before I knew them, I sort of felt like I sort of knew them to some degree. And and in some sort of strange way, I sort of felt like that we might sort of, I don't know, convene together at some point, which we did. And I don't know, it just sort of felt like a sort of natural progression. And then, their music has sort of informed my playing to some degree anyways, and been an influence. So I guess it's just been really an extension of that. And then as we've evolved as a group, I mean, I think we're all learning from each other every time we perform. It's always a bit different, and different things happen, and which can, pique our interest in various ways. Or and we've done a lot of shows now as well, so it kind of, I feel like it really feels like a unit when we play together. Which is a great feeling. It really feels like we can kind of go in any direction at any given time. And I feel, I'm kind of coming from a largely improvisatory kind of background, playing jazz and improvised music. And that's been a large part of my sort of journey up till now, and still is. And so I feel, I'd like to think that I brought some kind of element of that to the group, and I feel like they've really embraced that sort of side of my playing, or that side of our music that we make together, and it's been I feel like it's a kind of ongoing musical conversation that we have between the three of us that is kind of constantly evolving and taking different sort of twists and turns and avenues, and and I long may that continue, and I look forward to whatever we do next.
It is great. I do. I think one of the things that I like a lot about it is that you've got this clear idea of, oh, this is a Johnny thing, or this is a Tom thing, this is a Radiohead thing, or whatever, and it's so distinct to everything else that they've done, but you can feel the threads of it. Oh, this is just great. Also here, Tom played the bass is always awesome because he's such an unusual bass player. It's kind of like, it's familiar, but it's still surprising.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think, you know, it's Tom and Johnny, so there's elements that will kind of sound familiar, but then I feel like the music that we make as The Smile is quite distinctive, like you say, and quite different from everything that we've all done separately. So it's a very interesting combination of people and personalities and sort of approaches, you know, to music. And it's I don't know.
Let's dig into the record a bit. Let's pick a couple of songs that maybe these don't have to be singles. These can be anything you want or anything you've got a particular fondness for, or you were like, oh, that was a great day. Where should we start?
I think Don't Get Me Started, the creation of that and the sort of evolution of that song was very was a kind of a moment for us in the studio.
Why was that? Tell me about that.
Well, it evolved initially from like one of Johnny's sort of guitar riffs with his delay pedal, as many songs do. But he had this. I mean, it's one that's been sort of knocking around for a while, and we sort of jam on it in sound checks or whatever. We've been sort of playing it in different forms for a little while, but then we sort of, you know, it started with this guitar riff, which we then onto the Prophet 5, and suddenly it sort of took on this new quality and this new life, you know, and put it in a completely different sort of zone that we'd ever heard it before. And it was like, oh wow, this is really, it really opened it up into new kind of areas. So that was a really exciting moment. And then also when it flips to the B section, that was something that Johnny kind of just almost kind of improvised in the moment, I think. It's such a beautiful moment on the record, and when that happened, it was definitely a moment.
Why does the album open the way it does? Why does it start with Foreign Spies? Because it's certainly there's a lot of, it gives you a lot of atmosphere, doesn't it?
Yeah,
it really places you in the record pretty immediately.
Yeah. I mean, I think, you know, that decision to open with that didn't come lightly. It's you know, I feel like it's quite a bold move, but if anything, I guess that decision sort of came from a place of like wanting really to sort of distinguish it from the previous record or both previous records, and it felt like such a departure. There's nothing. That song, it's pretty unusual to say the least, lyrically and sonically. It's not like anything we've done, and I guess this record does feature a lot more kind of synths and electronics and stuff like that compared to the last one. So, you know, I guess it was a kind of statement of intent in some way. It was like, here we are, this is something different that you haven't heard from us before. And it just felt like a very bold way to open it, you know. And again, just like with many of these decisions, it was something that we just sort of ran with, you know, because it just felt exciting to sort of do something like that.
In terms of your kind of playing, is there a bit when you're like, that was gnarly to get that right? That didn't fall into place as easily as I wanted to, but we got there in the end. Is there? There's always some moments like that.
Yeah, there's a couple of songs. I mean, I feel like my drums are kind of maybe featured a bit more in some way on this record than maybe on some of the other stuff, but there's different things. Like the slip essentially is kind of like a drum solo in a way, like the way that there was a pattern that we had, but then I just did like about 3 passes on that, and I just kind of went off and just tried lots of different things, and then we kind of cut the track around some of those moments, you know. And so the drums are quite a big sort of feature of that song. And then as also with a couple of songs that have been songs that we played live for a while, but I've sort of struggled to capture properly in the studio for various reasons. And but so sorry, Eyes and Mouth is also one that's been like a live favourite, and it's been hard to capture that properly in the studio. But I feel like with this performance, we kind of nailed it, and again, it's sort of very built around the live drum. It's sort of like, I think me and Johnny cut the drums and the guitar together, so it's very much like a live drum take, that, and I'm really pleased with how that came out, because it was, you know, it's been difficult to get the right thing, and I think finally we managed to nail it.
Thank you to Tom for doing that interview for us. No live shows scheduled for The Smile, but I feel like The Smile story does not end with this album.